Foxborough that really FIFA offering no clarity. They need $8 million to cover security for the 2026 World Cup. Ryan, if I'm being honest, I wasn't expecting mass holes versus FIFA to be the matchup that we were talking about today. There were a few other matchups I thought maybe that would come first, but this is the first one. Also, I was not expecting to take the place or take the side rather of the mass holes. Typically, it's the other way around. But I tend to agree with them here. So how the story goes is essentially the government has designated what is over $460 million approved by the U.S. government to cover security costs for the World Cup. Now, this is, again, it's very expansive, multiple different host cities. Foxborough themselves, I believe, are going to be hosting 7 different matches. I think it's 7 total,
Yep.
Including a couple of knockout stage games. So, over $460 million designated by the U.S. government. You know, how much will Foxborough get? That much isn't clear. Nothing has been provided in the way of clarity on that. And this is where the problem comes in, because it has to become clear. Until they know where that $8 million is coming from, they will not play. And they've made this very apparent. They will not play if that $8 million is not there. So I think it is important to understand how things work in this context if it isn't in regard to FIFA. Like, let's just talk about the Kraft Group and the Patriots, right, for a second, how all this works out. Foxborough requires the Kraft Group to put up funds for projects and expects the World Cup organizers to do the same. While the Kraft Group has stated that it's not responsible for funding, it is in discussions with the town to potentially putting up the money and being reimbursed by the federal grant. But he said that would only cover a portion of the money. And the other side of this is that Foxborough, like the city themselves, they expect the Kraft Group in terms of, so $8 million. The stadium is owned by the Kraft Group, as we know, but headed by the Patriots owner, Robert Kraft. The town owns the land. So the town itself owns the land on which it sits and grants Kraft the same license for NFL games that now FIFA is requesting, right? So the town already pays, it's already built in to their taxes, funding the stadium that on which it sits on their land, right? It's a part of the city. But now FIFA coming in, they want $8 million for securities, and they want these guaranteed securities, but they're not giving any guarantees as to where this money is coming. All Foxborough wants is a level of transparency. We want nothing more to be able to sign on the dotted line and know that when events start, our problems aren't about the money, and this really could bury the city. So they just want answers as to where that money is coming from. And so that's really what led to this. And credit to the people of Boston standing up and going, hey, who do you think you are? Like, you come into our city, you want $8 million of our taxpayer money to host this tournament, and then you're going to up and leave with no guarantees that we're going to get any of that money back. You don't pay my bills. You don't send my kids to school. You don't do any of those. You're not from here. And now you're expecting me to put up $8 million, again, of our taxpayer money to host this tournament, and yet there are no guarantees. There are relatively zero guarantees on the back end that we're going to get this money back. Now, with the amount of money that the U.S. government has designated to World Cup matters, they should be able to get it back from the federal grant. But according to the people in the courthouse, there's a level of uncertainty that they're going to end up seeing any of those funds. And so that's where things kind of get murky. That's where things kind of get a little messy. But I'm all for the people of Boston saying, hey, FIFA, you want $8 million for securities, put up or shut up. Where are we going to get our money from? Where are we going to get our return on investment if you want us to host this and to give you a place like Foxborough to be able to host this tournament? So, I'm on the people I'm on the side of the people in Boston, and yeah, FIFA, I guess it's time to put up or shut up.
I just don't think FIFA wants to deal with the black magic that the Patriots have over in Foxborough. I think that's ultimately what this boils down to. I think so. I'm just kidding.
It could be.
No,
it could be.
FIFA is obviously a very corrupt system, and just history will tell you. Obviously, in recent years, not so much, but in the old regime and throughout history, it's been very, very corrupt, and I get it that Boston wants to see where their money comes from, or if they can get their money back, and all that fun stuff.
Mhm.
I get it, but maybe some of the security people just want to go to Fenway Park instead of Gillette Stadium for World Cups. Maybe they just want to see the Boston Red Sox play. I don't know, but it's just an issue that hasn't come up in any other city except Foxborough. So there's other shady stuff going on in other parts of the country, or even Mexico or Canada. But I also think that the issue with this World Cup specifically is there's so, like, obviously having it in France, having it in Qatar, having it in South Africa, Brazil. Those are some smaller countries. I guess you could say. I guess South Africa's not that small. But
Yeah.
anyway, like, you got to travel to a lot of places. So there's a lot of long distance travel for a lot of stuff. It's almost like conference realignment. All this stuff is. So there's a
Yeah.
lot. I feel like there's a lot more. And then you're in 3 countries. I think there's a lot more money that is being involved with a lot of this stuff, and a lot more extra than it usually is, compared to
Yep.
some smaller venues, not smaller venues, but smaller areas of land, where people have to constantly fly to. But no, I would agree
Yeah.
with you, Nate, that I think the Boston people, which I don't really like to begin with, I like them standing up for themselves. But again,
Yeah.
FIFA is it's
Yeah.
shady, to say the least. It's a lot like the
Yeah.
SEC. There's a lot of money being put around that no one really knows where it comes from or where it goes. But
Yeah.
again, public safety, that's another thing that we haven't touched on yet, is the safety, how everything's going to go with the World Cup. And if it's anything based off Copa America, we're in for a disaster.
Well, and the other important thing to keep in mind is Foxborough is not Boston. Like it's
Same
Boston
thing, same
area,
thing.
right? So it's like 30 minutes out. Well,
It's the
this is
same
important,
thing.
right? So it's important
It's
in
the
this
same
case, right?
people.
So hold on. 30 minutes outside of town. So what? Shelby Township is what?
40.
Half hour outside of 40? Okay, so it's roughly Shelby Township in comparison to Foxborough to Boston. Now, obviously, Foxborough has more people in it than I think Shelby Township does. However, when you look at that, Shelby Township is not Detroit. Yeah, you can say Detroit area, but it's not Detroit proper. So Foxborough is the people in Foxborough. It's not like you're taxing the people of Boston. Also, you talk about separate areas in terms of security and police forces, completely completely different cities. Yes, it's Metro Boston, and you can say you're from Boston. I don't think anybody would be like, "Oh, no, you're not. You're from Foxborough." Like, it's right down the road. But in terms of jurisdiction, in terms of logistics, in terms of how many people do we have available to us, and if you're talking about security too, Ryan, yeah, I mean, if it's anything like Copa America, or if it's anything like what we saw in the AFCON final, or anything else like that, you're going to need extra security for something like that. And so this $8 million isn't just a, hey, we're paying you back for what you're putting into this. They might have to hire more security. They might have to train up more people ahead of the World Cup, which again, it's barreling on down the line here. It'll be here before we know it. So that's why it's important. Yeah, I mean, technically, if you're from Foxborough, if you say you're from Boston, I don't think anyone's going to bat an eye at that. They're going to be like, okay, yeah, technically you are, but it's different jurisdictions, it's different parts. So I also thought that too. Like, FIFA, I think, is kind of running into this situation with the last 2 host sites. They're like, well, not that they were okay with it. I don't want to go as far as to say people were okay with this, but I mean, people died. I mean, there were like major human rights violations that made that available.
Yeah, it
It's
gets
going to be
hard.
hard to get
But
away
that's
with.
also
It's
when
going to
you
be
go to
hard.
a place that doesn't have the infrastructure.
Yeah, right. I'm talking about the slimy stuff in general. It's going to be hard to kind of squeeze that past in a lot of situations here in the US, especially if you're talking about the taxpayers and the people that, are going to be footing the bill that might not be FIFA itself. And again, if there's one population of people in the United States I would expect to make the biggest noise about it, outside of Philly, is probably Boston. So, or Metro Boston, because they're cheap SOBs. So I understand it. I understand the reasoning for it. But yeah, Foxborough is not Boston. So I think that also plays into this too.
Yeah, now I just wonder if there's any other issues with other host cities like New York,
Yeah.
or
And
Dallas,
maybe
or
it'll
in
start
LA.
popping up. Yeah, now that it was mentioned, maybe it'll start popping up. I don't know.
But maybe at the same time, this might be the only situation. We don't truly know the in depth of the matter. But all I'll say is I don't think the American people know how many people will be coming into the country every single year, or not every single year. Obviously, that's true, but this summer, and then when we host the
Yeah.
Summer Olympics in, I don't know, in 2 years, I forget what it is,
Hmm.
2028 in LA, which that's just a horrible idea. But anyway, like there's going to be so many people from around the world, Europe, Asia, Africa, South America. Like, obviously, not everyone is going to come to the United States. Obviously, some people go to Mexico, some people go to Canada. But there are going to
Yeah.
be a lot of extra people, which is going to make travel in between the months of June and July really difficult, which maybe if you want to plan that European trip, maybe you go over to Europe during those months. But no, there's going to be, like, what we saw in the Copa America, I think it was the final. I think Brazil played Colombia in the final. Maybe it was a semifinal. Anyway, of the Colombian fans climbing through the vents to get into the stadium to finally see everything. And then in the Uruguay game
Yeah.
against Colombia, Darwin Nunez goes in the stands, starts punching fans because there is some abuse or something. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of stuff. This is not. I hope the American people know, like, this isn't your typical. Um, this isn't your typical football NFL football game or college football rivalry, Alabama, Auburn, Michigan, Ohio State. No, this is like, we talked about the fans being crazier, which they are. They're more passionate about their sports, they're crazier for their sports. So you're going to then get that little mixture along with, this being something that only happens every 4 years. So few teams actually win a World Cup. It's crazy. I think there's like less than like 10 teams that have won a World Cup. But I hope
Yeah.
that they realize, the craziness that's going to go on all around the country this summer with everything. I shouldn't say craziness as a bad thing, but the amount of people that are coming in and hotels, everything. So just be prepared,
Yeah.
America.
And that's part of the reason why the security question is so pressing. I feel like for a place like Foxborough, like we have to have these guarantees if you want us to feel comfortable with what's going on here. Because if financially it becomes a problem, this could easily go from being a massive benefit to the economy in Foxborough and the economy in Massachusetts in general to being a net loss and a negative, because we're scrambling for the money that we need and the resources we need in order to protect the environments. And also, not just that, but you're right. I mean, you talked about the people who are just going about daily life. I think about the dude that's just getting up to go to work every day. It's going to be tough if you're in that area during that stretch of time, because there are going to be so many people. And so I think they realize it. I just think, again, it's going to more of a peace of mind if they have those guarantees from FIFA going into it, as opposed to just kind of winging it.
Yeah, it
So,
could be it could
but
be worse, people, in Foxborough. You could have a race in downtown Foxborough, like the Detroit Grand Prix, where people can't even go to work for a whole week or
that's
two
true.
because
I didn't even think about that.
they
Yeah.
can't actually go downtown Detroit because the race is there, and you can't go to like half of the city. So be grateful that it's not just a race, and you guys are being like blocked off. So, yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I heard that wasn't great. I heard the track wasn't wonderful. I saw it in Chicago once, so I know that they do it in Chicago and in
Yeah, but at the
Detroit,
same
but
time, it's the
you know.
European racers that were complaining about the roads. Like, guys, look, it's Michigan. We don't have good roads to begin with. The potholes, sure. Well, or not the potholes, the manhole covers, they tried their best, all right? And then you still lose, so who cares
they
ultimately?
tried they tried their best. Oh man. Yeah, never been much of a racing guy myself. I
You
just
should
want to
go. You
go
should
to
go to
a
the Grand Prix. Because you
want to
just
go
sit
to
in a
an
parking garage and watch the race for free. Just pay
It's
the
pretty
40
sick.
bucks. Pay the 40 bucks of the parking garage, bring your own food and drinks, and just sit there and watch the race. I was able to cover it this year, but I just sat in a parking garage and recorded videos. That's all I did.
It's pretty cool. Or we can go to a NASCAR race. They don't really seem like my
NASCAR is
people, but
boring. It's
what do
just
you mean
a
it's boring?
circle. At least
Oh, okay,
in
but
the
they go
Grand Prix, at least
fast.
there's crashes.
There is crashes in NASCAR. What are
No,
you
it's
talking
just in a
about?
circle. That's all it is this.
There's still pileups though, man. Well, I get it. But there's still pileups. You just don't have people dying anymore.
Now it's like, no, this is NASCAR. Yeah, let me just stare at a circle all day.
Yeah, but they got to cut in and cut around you. Come on, you watch Cars. Anyways,
I don't watch NASCAR. That's
Moving on.
stupid. NASCAR's boring.
moving on to our second topic when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the Messi effect in Miami, from just another club to the most valued club in Major League Soccer. 5 different organizations.
With Alexis coming on around 9:30, let's do a little bit of a mailbag. There's no reason to get into a topic and not actually talk about the full thing.